Hey guys, what's going on? This is Yuri with the GT Coalition. Today we're going to be doing a different kind of thing. No, it's not a GT bike, but actually it will kind of explain a few other things why I ended up liking the GT bike so much. So this is a bike in my collection I've had for quite some time. It's a Univega DS950 back in 99. Back in the day, I used to have a Mango Univega DS950, and before cross-country racing was accepting of full suspension bikes on the circuit, I actually used to race Univega DS950 at my XC races, and it was actually kind of my all-around bike too. So when I entered downhill races, I would still be in this. I would kind of change out a couple things, obviously the handlebar, and maybe go with a. Wow, I feel like really innovative at the time. I'd switch out the fork just like with something maybe more rigid or what have you. It just depended, and obviously, I would. Well, back in the day, it was just it was a coil shock, so it was trying to get the sag setting before it was a real thing. You know, a little like more firm on the cross country races. But anyway, I'm gonna go over this Univega DS950, kind of all the stuff that's been done to it. So it's, as you can tell, I've run, like I found deals on V brakes. I've got, so this Shimano Dior LX with some old pads. I'll replace them with some cool stops. This is a rebuilt thanks to Jerry Vanderpool at the time at Hippie Tech. It's a Judy SL long travel, meaning long travel as in it gets this is made for 100. The rebound sort of doesn't. It works as good as it can for a fork of this generation, and same with the preload and stuff. Here I've decided I still run race face half Nelsons, as you can see, and also I run kind of a generic setup here. Like it's a generic little chrome or silver stem with a 31.8 clamp and a blue wake handlebar. And obviously you can tell I've kind of slapped some parts together to make this bike just right, functional, such as Shimano Alivio with an 8-speed in the back, and also, just kind of this LX lever, whatever I could find. And this is in this cluster, so it's a 3x. It's actually a 2x8. This is a 3-speed shifter. Here's a 3-speed shifter, but this is a 2-speed crankset made by SR Centaur. It's an XCR with their bottom bracket as well. And the kind of interesting part about that is, if you just set the limiter screws, it gets you by. It's not the perfect setup, but I just want a bike to just play around on, so it's not like a big deal if it's a little bit grindy, that's fine. Also, here it just runs an Originate headset. Here's a little known fact. If anybody saw my GT RTS at Sea Otter, I've done some changes to my my GT RTS. I've actually removed the Originate headset, put in a Chris King headset on it, and I removed this stem. I think I put in another race face cross country stem on it, so about similar length, but it's just I was upgrading that bike, and I just threw these parts on. Here is interesting. Back in the day, this was a RST 22 rear shock, and it had 0 adjustments except for preload. So, if you had it really firm, the rebound would kind of kick you over a little bit. So you just had to kind of get it just right to where you weren't going to get hurt. Anyway, what I've done since that shock blew out, and to do a rebuild, or even like, number one, it's hard to find a shock that fits this. This is like, I had to get this custom made because the eye length on here is like a really odd, like 195 with a, like I think a 1.25 stroke. So I had Kevin Risty at Risty Racing make me a custom one, because actually, it's like, why would you spend more on this first shock than what this bike is worth? And it's just because it's for memories. So I that's why you see a lot of these old bikes that, I've spent a lot of considerable time and money on, is because, those were bikes I loved as a kid. And I think to appreciate the kind of new bikes that we have today, if you ride the old ones, it's like, wow, number one, it's a real big blast from the past, but it's also kind of you really have to realize how much more skilled you have to be on these bikes, because it's really demanding. So it's fun to ride these on trails that you can just glide through, and then realize how much work it takes on these bikes. So that's why I love keeping them around. For me, I just love the fun challenge. Another fun GT inherited fact is I love this wheel so much. I'm not a big fan of the Weinmann Zach 19s. They were a maintenance nightmare for me while under rear wheel. But I love the GT hub. So because I've upgraded the rebound to a different wheel set, I still wanted to keep this around. So if this wheel ever goes, I will just, obviously trash everything and keep the hub, just for memory's sake. Back here, I love this wheel. It's the Sunrims. It's a Sun Rhino Light. It's one of the most durable wheels I think you can find out here, like on the market. They're real bomb-proof. They're my real go-to wheel for downhill racing, or even like if I'm just gonna have a street kind of trials bike or a street bike just to play with, or even my BMX bike. My GT BMX Cruiser runs Sun Rhino Lights in a 24. Back here, it's the original rear derailleur from this bike. It's the Shimano DRLX back in the day. This is where the GT story really starts coming in. I couldn't afford a GT LTS with the spring shock. They had the elastomers like the LTS4 and stuff, and I couldn't. I was like, and what they were spec'd with wasn't that impressive. Well, Univega in '98 had a very well spec'd DS950. I've ridden back in the day Trek Y bikes from friends and other people, the URT suspensions, and I didn't mind them for the time, because that's all you really knew. And I couldn't afford a Schwinn homegrown, so that URT's out either. So anyway, this bike brand new, the Univega DS950 brand new, came out to being, I think ballpark, tax included, right below $900, and it had like STX and LX components. It had a really nice Tektro brake build to it, and a really pretty color. Like the other nice part is it's just a single pivot here that you got to deal with for maintenance, but it doesn't even come out. So I've had this bike all these years, and it's a pretty maintenance-less bike, or low maintenance bike. So for all these reasons, it just, for me as a kid with not that much money, I decided that I would just get a Univega DS950. Once I got a real job or something, I'd end up trying to get an LTS or RTS, but by that time happened, right? It's 2002. I don't really have the GT LTS bike and RTS bikes I lusted over as a kid aren't even in production anymore, so there went that plan. Anyway, another thing that I've done is of course, you notice Pro Logo seats. I like the 147 width seats, are comfortable for me. Also, this runs a 30.9 seat post, so I can actually add a dropper to it if I wanted to even make this more of a play around bike, but we'll see. Another thing that I've done here is I've added the performance brand Forte Solly tires, 26 by 2.2. I know everybody's gonna comment on that, but that's okay. It's just my play around bike. And also I work out of downtown Seattle, so this bike, I hate to say it, got stolen. I would be less crushed than if my GT's ass cars got stolen. Then I might need a therapist or something. I don't know. Here is another now you guys know, Yuri really likes to shop at Performance. No, they sell cheap stuff, and it's fine for this kind of bike. So here I run the Forte platform pedals, plus I like to keep my pedals kind of just standard. Oh, and here we go, an original front derailleur. That's right, it's Shimano STX front derailleur. I should have gone back to this. So this is the Rissy Genesis damper. I measured the eye to eye and the width here, and I gave the dimensions for even the bolts, so Kevin Rissy would know how to fabricate this rear shock. So it's a special rear shock for specifically this bike. The one thing, of course, never a fan of the water ball cage, even though I have it, because in the mud, Pacific Northwest kind of weather like I'm having now, it's like raining, you get all this crap underwater bottle, so I'm actually camelbacking it as we speak. But of course, how does this make sense for GT? Well, after riding this kind of bike, right, you kind of you're starting to be aware of different suspension platforms, and I couldn't afford a Trek Y bike either, but kind of the same, obviously, URT setup in a way. I'm not trying to make Trek people mad, but it's a Y bike, and in a way, and so of course, with that said, like I've ridden different suspension platforms to know what I like and don't, and on this one, it's a really plush bike. It sort of reminds you of an iDrive in the sense of plush in the saddle, and it firms up a little bit in the rear, just kind of like the RTS was semi-active, and this was like the fully active bike. The only thing is you get some pedal bob and things like that, some characteristics that you're not necessarily a big fan of, and that's why I think it on the climbs, when I do cross-country races on the Univega DS950, it was really like a chore. Like you really had to get your pedal strokes like just dialed in to where this bike isn't going to pop all over the place. And for downhill or even descending, this was a fun bike, because back in the day, like this is as good as it really got for people like me, and it's a pretty plush bike. Now it's a little firmed up because I just wanted a general bike, and actually I still race this bike from time to time for fun, and I definitely still ride it too. So I think when the time comes, if it were to ever break, I guess I would just kind of call it quits and move on. But I just wanted to have a bike like this to kind of reminisce on my old days. So how it comes about is, I just like riding my old stuff, kind of just a blast from the past. It's always cool, just to kind of appreciate history for where it is now and what it was back then. But anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I'm gonna go for a spin while there's still some form of light around. If you have any questions about the Univega DS950, feel free to chat with me, drop comments in the box. I always look forward to whatever you guys have to say. So anyway, be safe out there, have fun riding your bike, go out there, ride your bike, and again, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.